Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Welcome to Red Storm Chasers. I'm Vincent here with Nick. On this episode, we'll look back at the dominant DePaul victory and the disappointing loss against Marquette before we look ahead to a very important week against Providence and Seton Hall. Nick, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. I wish we beat Marquette, but I really wish we even showed up in the second half of Marquette, but I'm doing all right.
I mean, we were right there, but we'll get into that in a minute. Big weekend, Super Bowl weekend. Obviously, a disappointing outcome for me and you. I know we were both rooting against the Chiefs there.
Oh, yeah.
But as a Chargers fan, understandable. I just am tired of the Chiefs. And, you know, I really thought the 49ers were going to do it there for a minute, and then they blew it. I mean, taking the ball to start overtime, I think, was a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think the new rules may have confused them a bit. Certainly now from things that have come out, the team certainly didn't realize what the full extent of the rules were.
Yeah.
Which is not good. Not a good look for Kyle Shanahan, to be completely honest.
No, yeah, you got to know all the rules of the Super Bowl. I mean, you can't not know that it's your job.
Yeah, I mean you hear a lot of the Chiefs were like, yeah, we practiced for 2 weeks. We knew what we were going to do, blah, blah, blah. And these guys were like, well, yeah, we didn't realize that when if we scored, it didn't end the game. It was like, oh, well, you probably should have learned that beforehand since these rules came out, at the beginning of the season. So,
yeah,
rough one for sure.
Very rough one. I'm very not happy now that the Chiefs have 3. They're starting calling themselves a dynasty.
Yeah,
they're comparing themselves to the Patriots. It's awful. It's awful for me. My buddy's a Chiefs fan. It's just a bad time for me.
It is quite unfortunate, but hey, it's the end of the season. We're heading into a new year, I guess, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully a new champion for sure, because seeing the 3-peat would really suck.
Hopefully they don't even win the AFC West. Hopefully my Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, baby. Hopefully we come through.
I have to do shout out to Nickelodeon. That was fun. Watching a little bit of the game on Nickelodeon. That was cool. Having SpongeBob and Patrick do they didn't do the full colored commentary and stuff, but they were definitely they did commentary. They just didn't do the game itself. But watching some of their things, some of the clips and stuff was really funny.
Having Dora out there doing the rules and everything.
Yeah,
it was cool seeing all the clips after the fact. Don't get me wrong, I didn't watch it on that one. Part of me wanted to, but it was cool seeing the clips.
Yeah, no, for sure. Cool to see the clips and cool. I always thought it was a cool concept when they talk about doing it. So, anyway, my question for you this week, it's a lonely question. It's just you. We got a lot of snow coming in the region. Obviously, the game almost got moved. They're talking about moving the game. I don't believe it's going to get moved. But, with a lot of snow, I look back and are, having lots of fun when we were kids. What was your favorite activity to do in the snow on a snow day as a kid?
I think my favorite thing was probably sledding on our hill.
Nice, me too. I was going to say sledding too.
Yeah, so where we live, we have a nice. It's a sizable hill. It's a pretty steep hill, and
it's a good hill when you're a kid.
It's a good hill.
As we got older, we realized the hill was not that big, but when we were kids, it was a big hill.
Yeah, it's a solid, and you got speed. And there also used to be trees, so we had there was 3 trees, so there was almost 3 different runs where you tried to sneak past the tree. Every time it snowed, we were just there. And
you hit the tree a few times. Every once in a while, you hit a tree.
Hit the tree a lot of times.
It was good though. It was a great. I was saying sledding too. It's the great. We had that great hill, and I think that's what made it so much fun for us because we didn't have to go. We just went on the side of our house.
Yeah,
we did take every once in a while we went a few other places where there were some nice hills.
Yeah, like the school by us.
Had a the school hill by us and whatever. But I remember sledding too. I think it was best. Plus, snow days are the best because it was the first time when you were a kid where you were really kind of off. I mean, I know you had summer, which is a longer period of time where you knew you didn't have anything.
But
snow days were kind of unplanned, and I think that's what made them so special.
They're spur of the moment. They're so special. Nowadays, Nowadays, they don't even have them all the time necessarily.
A lot less.
Now they're talking about going remote and stuff. That's what Eric Adams say that in an interview today because apparently, as we were talking about, we're supposed to get a lot of snow, so he shut down the thing. He said everybody's going to go remote for the thing, which is.
Yeah,
that's terrible as a kid, right? That was one of the coolest things. Watching
New
on
Jersey
the TV.
Still cancel school.
Well,
a lot of New Jersey schools still cancel.
Well, that's good.
That's good. But yeah, watching your school come up on the TV and stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing like that, man. Now they don't. I don't even know how they do it anymore. Actually, at one point we had
text messages. It's got to be text messages.
At one point, we had the phone chain where you would call the night
you
before.
had to call the next person, or the person would call you, and then you had the next person you were supposed to call. I remember that.
That was kind of funny.
I assume now it's text message, got to be, or email, but probably text message.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it'll be fun. Hopefully, those of you who stay safe in the snow, and hopefully listen to us. Take some time in the snow day if you're lucky enough to have one. If not, avoid the travel. Fortunately, the game's in Providence, so you don't have to trek out to Madison Square Garden or to Queens for the game. You can watch it from the comfort of your home in what is probably going to be a very snowy day. Anyway, let's get into some St. John's basketball. The week started off nice last week. Can't have much more of an exciting start than we had. 85-57 victory against DePaul. Now, obviously, DePaul is abysmal. They are one of the worst teams in college basketball. Certainly the worst Power 6 team in college basketball. 3-20 on the season. 0-12 still in 0-12 still in conference. This game was everything we wanted it to be after the rough Xavier and UConn losses. We were looking for a bounce back game, and I think you'll probably agree with me. I walked into this game really just holding my breath, saying, "Dear God, don't lose to DePaul." Right? Now listen, this is, again, we talked all non-conference season about how we hadn't lost the game we weren't supposed to lose. Right, and this team, with the exception of Michigan, who is now falling off, but at the time, we didn't know that.
Right.
So this was kind of that same game, but I thought, you never know, right? In conference is a little different, but we got the job done, and we got the job done in big fashion. It was, Nick, I tried to take a look and say, what did we not do well here? And what I could come up with was this: we were only up by 9 points at halftime. That was the only negative thing I think I could take away from the DePaul win.
I would say that. The only other thing I would say is that it was at UBS Arena, and our fans didn't show up very well. That's also because we were playing DePaul.
Right, yeah.
But other than that, I think we were a little sloppy at points. But that, again, we were playing DePaul, so it didn't seem as bad, but at the same time, we were still a little bit sloppy. We had 9 turnovers, which isn't a ton, but they weren't good turnovers, and there were some miscommunications here and there. So outside of that, though, we shot well. We shot 1,000,000 3-pointer. We shot 42.
We did. We were 15 of 40, which was great, just incredible. 37% from 3, which is a great number for us. 42% from the field.
Yeah.
Even though we did have 9 turnovers, we were still plus 10 on the turnover margin, which is incredible. 80% from the free throw line. The numbers are ridiculous. We had 11 players score in this game, which is just fantastic. 3 players in double digits: Jenkins, Dingle, and Soriano. Again, this is a complete win. Now, again, you don't want to harp on it too much because DePaul is so bad, right?
Yeah.
That this is a game we were supposed to win. It's kind of just a check the box. Okay, we didn't blow it. And that's all you really get here. And, not to beat a dead horse, but when you win the games you're supposed to win, it does put you in a better place for the season, right? Coming out of the non-conference, we had won all the games we really should have won, with the exception of Boston College and Michigan. But now in the conference season is where it starts to be toss-up games, and we haven't done too well in the toss-up games, but this was kind of us getting back to, okay, we're going to win the games we're supposed to win, and then hope the other wins are enough. So fortunately, we get to see DePaul one more time, and we also get to see Georgetown having an awful season twice. So looking like hopefully 3 more wins at least on our schedule, which should bump our numbers up a bit. Georgetown, by the way, 1-11 coming into the week in the conference, so not much better than DePaul. Their one win is against DePaul. So just to keep in mind, they're only 8-15 on the year. Ed Cooley certainly walked into a real shitstorm, and he didn't really correct the ship so much.
No, he did not.
But anyway,
he's not doing as bad as DePaul. But by the
not
way,
as bad as DePaul.
Coming back to
who has no coach, but coming back to our game against DePaul.
We just, from the base, basically, at the beginning of the game, we kind of let him linger for a little bit in the first half. But after that, we just, in the second half, we just blew him away, and we were just a better team. Even in the first half, we handled them the whole time. We were just a better team on this one. But one stat I thought was very interesting is that they had 19 turnovers, and they only made 18 field goals.
Yeah, that's a
More
great
turnovers
point.
than field goals is a impressive feat. I don't know if I've ever seen before.
That is very, very bad. Actually, I mean that now you look at those numbers. That's a shocking stat. But hey, they're 0-12 in conference and 3-20 for a reason, right? So we walked away with a win. It turned us to being 14-9 following that game, 6-6 in conference, which moved us on to our second game of the week against Marquette. Unfortunately, that game not as positive as a result. We dropped that game 86-75, bringing us to 14-10, 6-7 in the conference. This was a frustrating one. This was a game where we had a 15-point lead. And this is a game in the second half where we just fell apart, just didn't show up. They came out, they started with 2 threes to start the second half, and seemingly from there just took control, and we were unable to keep up. Now, listen, I know they're the number 17 in the country. It's in Marquette. But at the same time, if this team is going to be a tournament team, if this team is going to be a team that competes, this is a team that needs to not score 28 points in the second half. Yeah. It needs to be a team that is able to keep up with these guys. And they just didn't show that. Listen, you're going to listen to these numbers, and you're going to say, how did we not win this game? Right? 42% from the field, 37% from 3. Now, 60% from the free throw line, but we're only 3 of 5. Okay, so that's not, that's not a huge sample size. So it's not, 60% when you're shooting 24 is a bad one. When you're only shooting 5, shooting only 3 of 5 from the free throw line is not terrible. You look, we out rebounded them, right? We had a +1 turnover margin. So you go down the list. How did we lose? Now, conversely, they shot 56% from the field and 52% from 3, right? So that's where it comes in. The killer was our defense. We just could not stop them, and that's why we lost the game.
Yeah, we couldn't stop them. It's funny because we went into DePaul at half up 9. And as you said, maybe that's not the best thing. We're up at 9 against Marquette. Yeah, very happy about that. And then we just forgot how to play basketball. We didn't forget how to play basketball. We basically stopped playing basketball. Soriano only played 7 minutes, which I thought was interesting. Towards the end,
he was in foul trouble, right? He was in foul trouble. Now Rick Pitino had come out. He didn't start the second half, right?
Yeah,
seemingly
that's weird.
He got a technical foul in the first half,
which was not a good technical foul.
Terrible technical foul. We'll talk about that in 1 minute. He was in foul trouble, and because he was in foul trouble, Rick Pitino said that's why he didn't start the second half. I don't know if that's really true.
Yeah.
I think the technical foul has something to do with it. But Soriano is phenomenal, and we all love Joel Soriano, except, and I've beaten this drum a few times this year, I think Dennis Jenkins is our best player. And I think our problem is we consistently try to make things happen for Joel Soriano, when in fact we should try to make things happen for Dennis Jenkins.
I definitely see what you're saying. There's definitely an argument there, and I don't know exactly where I fall on that, but I will say this. Soriano definitely draws a lot of attention on defense too, which allows Jenkins to work a little bit more on the offense. So I would agree that right now, especially over the last 4 or 5 games, Jenkins has been our best player, our most influential player each of the last 4 or 5 games. I would say almost without a doubt. But Soriano was getting double teamed in this game. He was getting double teamed in the DePaul game, but that doesn't really matter.
No, but again, UConn.
Against UConn too.
Xavier.
You know what I mean? So Jenkins was able to get more open space, more opportunity because they were doubling Soriano. So
yeah, that's fair. I mean, those are both fair points. I just, I think, and it's not like we completely run the offense through Soriano. We do at some points, and we don't at some points, and that's fine. I'm not saying we need to, wholly hand the ball over to Dennis Jenkins. I just think in big moments, we tend to defer to Soriano, or we tend to defer to letting Jenkins set it up, when in retrospect, we should be putting the ball in Jenkins' hands to score the point, right, to make the play.
I don't know. So I like him with the ball. I kind of like him with the ball in his hands at the end. I kind of like his decision making now.
I do too, but I like it with the idea. Yes, that's my thing. I like it with the idea of him going to shoot.
Yeah.
When most of the time we put the ball in his hands to make a play for somebody else to get the ball and shoot. I think that's kind of my criticism. But anyway, a little more into the numbers here. Yes, Soriano had a rough game. 2 points, 5 rebounds. He got double teamed. He got into foul trouble. And I think the early foul trouble really got to him.
One of 4 shooting.
Terrible. I mean, just absolutely terrible. Kudos to Marquette is what it really says, because they did a phenomenal job of double teaming him, and they did a phenomenal job of shutting him down, and we didn't have an answer. Yeah. We had 4 guys score double digits. It's not like we didn't play well on offense. Again, our problem really came on defense, and I do think part of that also falls on Joel Soriano not being there, right?
Yeah.
Our defense does work way better when Joel Soriano is down low, and because he wasn't there, because he was in foul trouble, we found ourselves falling into our old St. John cues of wide open threes.
Yeah.
Wide open threes consistently for them, which they hit. When you shoot 52% from three and you shoot 27 threes, most likely you're going to win every game, right? It's hard to overcome that. But the reason you can shoot 52% is because, of the 27 they took, probably 10 of them were wide open.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were at home. They're at their home field, right? So they practice there every day.
Yeah. It was this loss falls on the defense, in my opinion. The offense did its job, right? 42% from the field, 37% from three. Like I said, 4 guys in double digits. We scored. We played offense. 75 points is good offense.
Most of the time when we score 75 points, we win the game.
100%. The problem is our defense was absolutely garbage. Just non-existent, and particularly in the second half, non-existent.
I agree. They literally, Kolek and Mitchell ran all over us, did anything they wanted to us. Oso, shout out Oso Iguodaro. He was very, he handled Soriano down low. He's much more athletic, big. I think he's an inch shorter, or he might.
I think so. He had a 9 day, right? 9 points, 9 rebounds.
Yeah,
not a double, but very close. So he had a great day, and Kolek just killed us. 27 points, 13 assists. I mean, it was a rough one, and it was a game. At least in my opinion, I walked into saying, I think we can get this one, particularly after we only lost to them by 1 point at home.
Yeah,
this is a game where you go, this could be our statement win that everyone keeps saying we don't have, that we need so much. This could have been it at Marquette, number 17 in the country. Instead, it goes the other way, and we're once again find ourselves looking for that signature win. And we're running out of opportunities, to be honest. We are running out of opportunities to get that real key signature win that is going to go on the resume. But we'll talk about that in 1 minute. Before we do that, let's talk about Spotlight Player of the Week. Obviously, 1 up, 1 down game. Nick, since you're the only other person here, who do you got for Spotlight Player of the Week?
I like the Spotlight Player of the Week the last 2 weeks because I've had a lot of influence. I've had the most influence out of everybody.
That's right.
My vote has meant the most.
If this were electoral college, you would be one of the small states getting way overrepresented because you were, small sample size to vote against.
As long as I just stay healthy and stay away from you guys, as long as I keep coming on the.
That's it.
I'm going to be the most influential guy on this board. I think Jenkins is the obvious answer, but I'm not going to give it to Jenkins. I'm going to give it to Aline because Aline.
Wow. All right.
I feel like Aline in the last 2 games has shown that he could be the shooter that we've been looking for. I know I harp on this. I say this almost every single podcast that we've been looking for, but Aline he's a spot-up shooter, right? He was supposed to be a spot-up shooter. He shot 50% in the DePaul game. He went 1 for 5 from 3, so they're not great. But in Marquette, he went 4 for 7 from 3. And he shot a little under 50%. He shot 4 for 9 overall. But he was one of the reasons why we were in the game. He had 21 minutes off the bench, 12 points. It'd be great if we can get him more involved in the offense, get a little bit deeper.
I do agree getting him involved is key, although I disagree. Spotlight Player of the Week, I think you got to give it to Dennis Jenkins. 22 points against Marquette. He was one of the guys who really stepped out, and he played an extremely good game against Marquette when we needed him to. And he also had 14 points against DePaul. Now, I know it's DePaul, but you still get points because it's a full week, which means we're split here. Double Spotlight Player of the Week. Do we go with no Spotlight Player, or do we give them each a half Spotlight Player? I think we have to give them each a half.
I think they get a half. We were talking about last week we could get like like feed all the stats and all of our votes into ChatGPT and then have them vote. But luckily, we both voted for Jenkins last week.
All right. Do you think we need to use ChatGPT now then? Did you just determine that was going to be necessary last week?
We were more joking about it and hoping it didn't have to come to it, and it didn't. But now we're here, so we could do whatever we want.
All right. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we ask? I'll say, what is a question that I should ask ChatGPT? Who was the best player on St. John's last week?
No, ask him just ask who's the spotlight player of the week for St. John's in the last 2 games.
All right, let's see
what it comes up with.
Who is the spotlight player of the week for St. John's men's basketball this past week? Let's see what they say.
You can say over the
let's see.
Games.
Sorry. This was a mistake for us not understanding ChatGPT. ChatGPT's last update was in January this says January of 22. I don't know if that's correct. But anyway, this is not, so they do not have real-time data, I should say. I'm not going to pay for the updated one. So we will not get an answer from ChatGPT because they don't have real-time data. So which means they cannot answer. So unfortunately, we're left to our own. I think we give them each a half and we move on. So Aline, Jenkins, half spotlight players of the week. So shout out to them. All right, now let's look at the big picture here as to where St. John's basketball sits. Like I said, 14-10 on the year after the Marquette loss, 6-7 in conference. Not exactly where we were hoping to be. However, fortunately, we do find ourselves not in a terrible spot. We're in 7th place right now, which I know sounds terrible. However, Butler and Xavier are the 2 teams ahead of us. They're both 7-6, so 1 game better than us. And Seton Hall and Creighton are 8-5. So only 2 games better than us, plus we both play Creighton, Seton Hall, and Butler. So we still have a chance to directly impact our standing. In terms of our net rankings, still very good in the net. I have to say our net ranking has really been boosted by our non-conference and the fact that we continue to play in the Big East, which of course is a spectacular league. And this year, that may be even more emphasized. I have to say, I think there's a chance we get 8 teams in the tournament.
Yeah.
But our net ranking is 46 coming into the week, still top 50. And
haven't had a bad loss.
Just in a lot of places, haven't had that bad loss. That's the thing, and it still keeps us in the conversation of the tournament. I know a lot of places. Joe Lenardi has us as the first team out. Bracket Matrix, which is what Craig likes to use, has us as 12 seed. So
I don't know.
It's pretty good.
Actually,
I'm sorry, my mistake. This is me not knowing how to use Bracket Matrix. It looks like our average is an 11 seed. So still in the tournament, and we're certainly still going to be on the bubble the whole rest of the year. Now, that's why I think this coming week is extremely important for us, which we'll get to in a minute. But this is a team where we have consistently been thought of in the tournament conversation, and obviously nothing this week changed that. You lose to the number 7 team in the country at their own building. That's not really going to hurt you too much. And you win the game you're supposed to win in DePaul, and you find yourselves, kind of right back where you started at the beginning of the week.
Yeah.
I do think that key signature win is starting to evade us, though, right? We've got really one more game, that home game against Creighton at the end of the month. Besides that, I don't really see another statement win possible, with the exception of games in the tournament, right? Those will be, hopefully, we play ourselves into an opportunity to get a statement win there. But besides that, you're looking two Georgetown games at a DePaul game. None of those are statement wins. At Butler is going to be a very important game, but I don't know if that's a statement win. And then obviously this week at Providence and home versus Seton Hall, maybe you can make the argument that Seton Hall would be a statement win. They are currently, the surprise of the Big East, I would say. They're in 4th place, 8-5, 15-9 on the year. I don't know if that's a statement win, though.
I would argue that it could be a statement. I mean, listen, you're beating somebody that's top 5 in the Big East. That's as much of a statement win as we can. I mean, outside of Creighton, that's as much as we're going to get a statement win down the line.
The problem is they're 76 in the net, so they're not. Yeah, right. Like Butler's 50 in the net, so
it'll matter more for the East tournament than will for the NCAA tournament.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Again, I think it's an important game. I agree with you. I think both of these games are must-wins, and we're going to get into that when we talk about them. But in terms of that statement win, I think Creighton's the only one left. So, yeah. But obviously, then we get to the Big East tournament, and you hopefully get another chance at teams like UConn or Creighton or Marquette again, and then you get an opportunity at another statement win in a not on the schedule. I
don't think Butler is a signature win, but I do think it's a very important win. It's actually very similar to Seton Hall. They're one game back from them in the Big East, and they're 50 in the net, so they're very similar to Seton Hall. But that's an important game because if we lose that game, if we lose to either Butler, Seton Hall, or Providence, everybody's going to be looking at us like, okay, we were expecting them to get a win here. They didn't get it. They're not as good as we think they are. Blah, 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 blah. That's what I'm worried about, at least.
Well, that leads it. That's a good segue into this week because I do think this week is very much a make or break week for us. I think it's a change the narrative kind of week for us. Yeah, and I think it's a week where we have to come away with 2 wins.
Have to.
So we'll get our first chance on Tuesday, 7 p.m. against the Providence Friars in Providence. Game on CBS Sports Network. Obviously, we already have 1 win against the Friars, 75-73, a very scary game at home, but a victory nonetheless. So this is, again, like we just said, in my opinion, this is a must-win game. This is a game where we beat them once already. If we want, first of all, for seeding in terms of the Big East tournament, it's important, but also in terms of changing the narrative. I think right now everybody's down on St. John's, and I can see why. Right, we had a 3-game losing streak in at Creighton, at Seton Hall, and then against Marquette. Then we beat Villanova, but then we lost to Xavier and UConn, and we lost to Marquette again. So we've only won 2 of the last 8 games, right? So I can see why people are down on us. I think that's completely fair. However, I do think that if you look at that stretch, that's an extraordinarily tough stretch of our schedule. Yeah. The toughest stretch of our schedule. It just happened to be a month. Now, I'm not giving us a pass. I'm just saying we can make up some work, and it starts right here on Tuesday against the Friars. So looking back at that previous game, what we did well, what we didn't do well. We shot well. We shot 48% in that last matchup. We also shot 38% from 3. I think duplicating those numbers, by the way, similar to that Marquette game we just played, 75 points. We can do if we duplicate what we did against Marquette against Providence. I think we come away with the win, which is basically what we did against them last time as well.
75 points.
That's it.
That's all we need.
Marquette obviously is a different monster, a different team. Joel Soriano, very important in the Providence game. The first time, 7 rebounds, 16 points for him, 8 of 11 from the free throw line. We're going to need a day from Joel Soriano. Obviously, no Hopkins for Providence since he's out all year, so not as big down low. However, they still have a presence down there. Oduro is their guy down low that Soriano's going to have to deal with. 9 rebounds from him last game. So, we got him into foul trouble, which is what helped us. But I do think that we're going to need Soriano to get back. I also think just for Soriano's sake, we need him to get back in the game, get a nice positive, push here, and really start to head down the end of this season with this victory. Nick, what do you think we need to do here to make sure that we go into this hostile territory and come out with a victory?
So I think we're going to have to spread the ball around. I think that's going to be a key to our success because, especially if I was just talking about it before, if we can get Aline involved, if we can get, even Conway looked okay in the DePaul game. If we can get somebody involved that's not usually involved and get some other guys a little run, I think it'll benefit everybody else. Providence is very guard heavy now. They have been.
Yeah,
they are
for sure.
So we're going to be running a lot, right? So we're going to have fresh legs. The more fresh legs we have, the better. And if we can get into any kind of rhythm, that'd be better, very beneficial. That's our key, I would say.
Right. I think if we control the pace of the game, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
If we're able to dominate how the game is played, which is obviously like you said, not anti-guard. We're not anti-guard, but I would say that we're not as guard heavy, and we're not as guard focused in that we don't try to run up and down the court on you like we have in the past. 2 regimes here at St. John's. We like to take it slow. We play a half-court offense. So I think if we can do that against these guys, that's going to be something that's not going to be good for Kim English's team and going to put us in a place where, we've got ourselves a shot at winning this game. On the road is tough, though. Every road game is, you're facing off against people who don't like you. And Providence, they do a good job at the dunk there, filling in the seats. And now, listen, there is going to be snow, so maybe that'll hinder them a bit. We can only hope. But it is going to be certainly a very tough place to play. We've got to overcome that, and then we've got to overcome our own shakiness. I do think the team's confidence has taken a hit recently, and I think we need, the DePaul game was nice, but I think a win here could really get us back on track mentally to being, in a place where this team is saying, we actually are as good as we've thought we are. Because I do think right now that's not true, that the team is certainly in a mental place that it's not great.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And especially if we can get a win against Providence and Seton Hall and then roll that into, a win against Georgetown. And then, Creighton, if we can get a win, that'd be awesome. But if we lose there, I don't think that's the worst, for your mental-wise, stability-wise for your team, as you were saying. But then we follow it up with DePaul and Georgetown, another win. I think, to your point, mentally we could be very good going into the Big East tournament.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I did want to talk about is I remember at the beginning of the season we were talking about what's an important game to look at, to watch out for this season. And my pick was this game at Providence. Now, I thought they were going to have Hopkins and be a better team, but they're still a very good team in there. We're tied with them in the Big East. So this is going to be a very crucial game to us for Big East tournament seeding-wise. I was looking at it the other day. If we could get up to the 5 spot, then we avoid Wednesday, and we're already playing on Thursday.
Yeah, for sure. That's how the new system works.
Yeah, so if we can get, if we can beat Providence, who's a team that's tied with us, if we can beat Seton Hall, who's sitting at the 4 spot, and if we can beat Butler down the line, who's one game back, so they're the 5 spot.
1 game ahead of us. Yeah.
1 game ahead of us, 1 game behind Seton Hall, so they're 5 spot. If we could beat all 3 of those teams, we're sitting in a pretty good spot for the Big East tournament, I would say.
Yeah, no, I do think this is the first step towards that. I mean, you look at this last stretch of games, right? And, we've got 7 games left. We really should win 6 of them. And if that's true, we're going into the Big East tournament with momentum, most likely in the 5 seed, probably could be higher, but probably around that 4 or 5 range. But we're going in with a lot of confidence, and I think we're in a great spot. But it starts on Tuesday against Providence. Our other game this week is on Sunday. We play at home on Fox Sports 1 as well, 5 p.m. against the Seton Hall Pirates. The very surprising Seton Hall Pirates, who are having a very good year. They find themselves 4th in the conference heading into this week, 8-5, 15-9. But I did say their net is pretty low, 76. They're much further behind us. That's because they didn't have a great non-conference schedule. We already lost to them once in what I'm sure most of you remember was an absolutely abysmal game. They went on a 28-0 run there between the end to start the second half, which is why we found ourselves with an 80-65 loss at the Prudential Center, which thank God this game is not there.
We always play so bad at the Prudential
Center. We are. Thank God it's out. Now we're playing at UBS Arena, though. We're not at home. Well, I shouldn't say we're not at home. We're not at Madison Square Garden or at Carnesecca. We are at UBS Arena.
Good. Make sure they can't make it all, or they can make it all the way out there, but it's going to be a trek to make it all the way out there.
Good scheduling to make the New Jersey folk, struggle to get out there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for us, as New Jersey folk, it's a little harder ride for us, but we are going to go out there anyway. Don't you worry.
I did it for the DePaul game, so it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, no, we can get out there.
We don't like those New Jersey people.
Yeah, but put all the Seton Hall people on the train. Make sure they get there an hour and a half late. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the Seton Hall Pirates. Now, last game, as I said, they went on a huge run to start the second half, and that's really what did us in. Part of that goes towards defense. Now, they didn't play spectacularly well. We actually outshot them from on the field. They did shoot 42% from 3. And when teams shoot, above 40%, it is hard to beat them. They had 5 guys score double-digit points, including Alamir Dawes go off for 21 points. Dylan Adewusu certainly got his payback for not being on this team by giving 16 and 10. He really had a revenge game at home there So those are two guys that we certainly are going to have to shut down. Now, you also can't forget Kadari Richmond, his best player on the team. He's in talks of being the Big East Player of the Year. He played well against us, 12 points and 9. He wasn't the most dominant player, though. So they're a team that can come at you from different ways. They got Bediako down low. He held Joel Soriano 6 points last time. He's their center. They've got guards. So, we're looking at, we struggled against them last time. We've struggled against Seton Hall recently as a whole. We've got to figure out the recipe here to shutting down their guys and not letting, Dawes and Adewusu and Richmond all go off. Also off the bench, Hutchinson Everett. He was a big guy who also worked well against Joel Soriano for 14 points. So there's a reason we struggle with them, and there's a reason they're having a good year. And Nick, what do you think we need to do here to make sure we turn around this result from what happened last time?
I think the key to this one is making sure that only one player on their team goes off against us, really. And I know that kind of sounds weird, but if we have only one of their guys score double digits and maybe get a double, and everybody else have a bad night, I think we're going to be okay. Or lock everybody else down, not necessarily have a bad night.
That's a fair sentiment, though. I mean, I see what you're saying, right? We were Dawes and Adewusu and Richmond last time. All were able to go up against us, and even Davis got 10 points.
Yeah, they had 5 players that had double digits, and they had one guy with 10 rebounds. They had Adewusu had 10 rebounds. Richmond had 9 rebounds. Hutchins off the bench had 7. They had Davis with 6. Bediako with 5.
They had great days.
To have a lot of good days. If we can limit that to 1, heck, maybe even 2, we'll have a lot better. We'll win the game.
You're certainly right. Reducing the number of guys that really played extremely well against us last time would be huge.
If we could limit the guys who almost got doubles to maybe 2, that would be cool.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. I do think we also need to limit fouls. They shot 32 free throws against us in the last game, and they made 26 of them. So that's 26 free points right there. So limiting fouls and limiting their guards, I agree with you there, Nick, and getting Joel Soriano going. I do think Joel Soriano going, a lot of that is going to come from the Providence game. I think one feeds into the other.
Of course.
But I think if we can do that, we've got a recipe right there where we, at home, in UBS Arena, can get a victory against the Pirates, which, again, not a statement win because of their net ranking not being high. Right. However,
important.
A, in the standings, it's an important game. And B, I do think the conference as a whole will look at this and go, okay, St. John seems to be getting right. They got a win against Providence and a win against Seton Hall in the same week. 2 good wins. They seem to have right the ship a bit and are heading in the right direction.
If we beat Providence, we're going into the Seton Hall game probably favored in that. Well, almost certainly favored in that game because we're home. But still, really, oh man, they should win that game, I would say.
That's true for sure. I agree with that. I do also think Seton Hall kind of have gotten a bad rep this year, which is why they've gotten they're the surprise team. So we shouldn't be overlooking them. But I do agree with you that if we beat Providence, the confidence will be up, and I think people will say, yeah, this is a game St. John should be the favorite in. Whether that means anything or whether that helps us, who knows? But we'll certainly find out. So it should be an interesting week. I do think this is a pivotal week for us. I think this is a make it or break it week. If we're going to be a tournament team, and we're going to be a tournament team who, is not a team fighting for a bubble spot, it starts with this week. It starts with 2 wins. And if that's the case, next week we're going to have a very positive conversation about how now this team is going to be able to play more so for seeding, right? They're going to be able to get up to a 7 in the tournament. They're going to be up to, be able to make a push with some wins in the Big East tournament. With 1 loss, or dare I say 2 losses this week, it's going to be a grim outlook. It's going to be where do we go from here? And I do think 1 loss keeps us on the bubble for the rest of the year. 2 losses, we're going to need a Big East tournament victory, if we're going to try to make the tournament.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'd have to at least make the championship game.
Let's hope we don't have to have that conversation. Let's hope it never comes up.
Alternatively, if we win both the games, and then we win out minus Creighton, I think we're almost certainly a lock to be in the tournament. We are a lock to be in the tournament.
Oh no, for sure. Then I think we're in the tournament. So let's start here, get 2 wins, and see what happens. Anyway, all right. Well, that'll do it for Nick. I'm Vincent. Go Johnnies. Keep chasing.